What if I told you the UK housing market isn't simply cooling down? It's rotting from the inside out. Because behind every glossy for sale sign, every record-breaking rent, every new luxury tower lighting up the skyline, hides a story of deliberate failure. A story of governments that turned the human right to shelter into an industry of speculation. Tonight, in London, the financial heart of Europe, 13,000 people will sleep rough. 90,000 children will grow up in temporary accommodation. Families living for years in one-room hostels, sharing beds, eating takeaway dinners on the floor. And while they struggle to survive, billion-pound apartments sit empty, owned by shell companies and investors who've never even visited the city. This isn't a glitch in the system. This is the system. Earlier this year, the government quietly cut its affordable housing target from 35% to just 20%. Housing Secretary Steve Reed defended it with a single sentence: 35% of nothing is nothing. Translated, if developers won't build homes people can't afford, then affordability itself must go. The target for London was 66,000 new homes in 12 months. Barely 3,000 have started construction. The rest are frozen by soaring material prices. Concrete up 50%, steel up 40%, and interest rates that have made borrowing impossible. The mayor called it a perfect storm, but storms pass. This one was designed, planned through decades of policy that treated houses as investment vehicles rather than places to live. To understand how we got here, you have to travel back to the 1980s, to the moment Britain began selling its own future. Margaret Thatcher stood before the nation and promised a property-owning democracy. Her flagship right-to-buy scheme offered millions of council tenants the chance to purchase their homes at enormous discounts. It sounded revolutionary. It was, in fact, the largest sell-off of public housing in British history. 2 million council homes changed hands. Tens of billions poured into the treasury. Local councils were forbidden to spend a penny of it replacing what they'd sold. For every 100 public homes lost, fewer than 10 were rebuilt. A generation of social housing vanished almost overnight. Fast forward 4 decades. More than 40% of those former council homes are now owned by private landlords. In Brighton, the figure reaches 86%. Homes once built for nurses, teachers, and bus drivers are being rented back to them at triple the price. The dream of ownership became a landlord's empire. And when rents exploded, the government didn't intervene. It subsidized the explosion. Through housing benefit, taxpayers began paying a portion of tenants' rent directly to landlords. In theory, it kept roofs over heads. In reality, it funneled billions of public pounds straight into private pockets, year after year. It was welfare for property owners. By the 1990s, the sell-off deepened. Councils were pushed to transfer their remaining housing stock to so-called non-profit associations. Those groups borrowed heavily from private banks, raised rents to service the debt, and started rewarding executives with 6-figure salaries. The label said social. The business model said corporate. Meanwhile, private developers were given free rein. They built for profit margins, not for people. They hoarded land, waiting for values to climb before breaking ground. Each empty lot became a speculative chip in a national property casino. Successive governments, conservative, labor, coalition, all kept the table open. Every scheme meant to help buyers only inflated prices further. Every cut to public building deepened the shortage. And the result is visible on every street. The working class priced out. The middle class drowning in mortgages. The young giving up entirely. For millions, the so-called housing ladder has become a treadmill, running faster just to stay in place. This didn't happen by mistake. It was a political project spanning 45 years, designed to transfer wealth from the many to the few. A project that replaced stable communities with fragile markets and turned homes into chips in a global investment game. Britain didn't build a property-owning democracy. It built a rentier state, a machine that extracts rent, interest, and debt from everyone below. And that machine is beginning to seize. Developers can't build, buyers can't buy, renters can't breathe. The cracks in the facade are no longer hidden. They're spreading. The UK housing market isn't just in trouble. It's collapsing under the very logic that made it rich. The crash isn't coming. Oh, it's already here. Across the country, construction sites have fallen silent. Developers are walking away. Mortgage approvals have collapsed. And renters are paying more than ever for less than ever. This isn't a blip or a correction. It's the consequence of 4 decades of policy that turned homes into financial assets instead of human necessities. After the great sell-off of the 1980s, every government doubled down. In 1988, rent controls were abolished. By 1996, the buy-to-let mortgage arrived. Cheap loans designed to turn ordinary citizens into landlords. Owning property stopped being about living. It became about leveraging. Banks poured money into housing because it was safer and more profitable than lending to real businesses. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, the system should have crashed for good. But instead of reforming it, the Bank of England and the Treasury pumped it full of cheap credit. Interest rates were slashed to near zero. Hundreds of billions were printed through quantitative easing. The goal was to rescue the economy. The result was to make property even more expensive. By 2014, the bank itself admitted that QE had driven up house prices by more than 20%. And yet, governments called it success. Then came Help to Buy, a policy supposedly for first-time buyers that, in reality, stuffed developer profits and inflated prices further. Britain's housing market became the engine of its economy and its addiction. By the 2020s, 60% of all bank lending in the UK went straight into mortgages. That's over £1.7 trillion of private debt, propping up house prices and trapping families for life. It created an illusion of prosperity built entirely on credit. Meanwhile, the value of land, the ground beneath every home, skyrocketed. In the 1930s, it made up 2% of a property's cost. Today, it's 3/4. The profit is in the dirt, not the bricks. Developers hold land for years without building, waiting for permission, for subsidies, for values to rise. Nothing is produced. Wealth simply concentrates. And the government rewards it. There's still no annual land value tax, no capital gains tax on a main home, and loopholes wide enough for corporations and billionaires to walk through. In 2007, ministers even created real estate investment trusts, giving big investors tax-free income as long as they kept speculating. The result? Pension funds and hedge funds now own entire neighborhoods. For everyone else, it's survival. The average UK rent has exploded to £1,350 a month, 3 times higher than in the 1970s. In London, double that. Wages have crawled up only 40% in real terms. The gap has become a canyon. Young adults are trapped paying half their income to landlords. Families are forced miles from work. And the dream of ownership has mutated into lifelong debt. Households now owe around 120% of their yearly income. Credit cards and payday loans keep the lights on. Half the country owns almost nothing, while the top 10% own nearly everything. This is the return of a very old order, modern-day feudalism, dressed in glass and steel. A nation of tenants serving a new aristocracy of landlords, banks, and funds. The UK's housing crash isn't a moment of chaos. It's the logical conclusion of 45 years of deliberate policy. It's what happens when a country decides that profit matters more than people. And now, that decision is coming home. Developers can't sell. Investors are pulling out. Mortgages are unaffordable. The machine built to feed itself is running out of fuel. The collapse has begun. Slowly, quietly, and completely. Britain faces a choice. Rebuild a system based on homes as a right, or watch the entire market devour itself. Because when shelter becomes speculation, collapse isn't a possibility. It's a promise. So if you want to follow what happens next, subscribe, like, and stay tuned.